Oh, hello, sensitive souls. Welcome to Surviving to Thriving, where we look at how to move from struggling and just surviving in a world that's really big, fast, busy, just too loud, seemingly too much, to a place that's calm and actually allowing us to thrive as highly sensing people. I'm your host and high sensory coach, Tammy Goen. And as always, I'm so glad to be here with you. And it's really my mission to help every highly sensing woman stop hiding and feeling wrong, playing small and trying to stop being who she is and be less sensitive and really come to honor her amazing, unique skills, to embrace those skills and that nature, that sensitive nature, and become a really strong, even gentle, but strong force in the world. So this week, I am following up on my recent blog post and newsletter. So some of this will be familiar if you have already read that. But it's based on this idea of the kind of the dance of high sensitivity and health. But before we jump into that, as usual, I like to have some quotes. So I love these. To start with, it is health that is a real wealth and not pieces of gold and silver. And that was said, years ago by Gandhi. And then the Dalai Lama stated, happiness is the highest form of health. So just something to chew on there for a little while. Just that idea that, sometimes we can get really locked into what we're doing, what we're thinking, the way we think things should be. And if we can just spend some time really focusing inward and being, as happy as we can be with our lives and doing what we need to do to become happier and to be in a calmer state, then we will be healthier. And that's a very worthy goal. So what I focused on in my newsletter and on my blog post was a specific article written by Elaine Aron, who, in case you aren't aware yet, is the premier researcher for high sensitivity. And she does have a really great website and puts out blog articles once in a while. And this one, I really took a deep dive in and wanted to be able to share with everybody because it's really, really important and impactful in this idea of health. So there are, of course, a lot of factors affecting mental and emotional health, but we're going to talk primarily today about physical health. And of course, that's impacted by our emotional and our mental health, but we're really focusing on the physical aspects of sensitivity related to health and what the recent research is showing. So, and if you're not familiar with have watched my show a lot or familiar with me, I do tend to use the word highly sensing instead of highly sensitive, just because it just kind of feels better, doesn't have any negative connotations like the word sensitive. So I will be saying sensitive sometimes because that's how she refers to it. But I do have a link in the show notes if you want to check that out. I really recommend actually reading the whole article. It's a little bit long, but she's pretty easy to read. And then there are definite, sources in there that are cited that are really important. But overall, I want to give kind of a brief summary, but also kind of talk about what that means, and then look at ways that we can, work to keeping ourselves healthy. So it may seem in your experience that we HSPs tend to be more prone to illness, or the intensity of conditions, it might be heightened. And I've read a lot that certain issues seem to pop up, like digestion and fatigue, maybe chronic fatigue, various things that seem more likely or experienced more often by HSPs. So the question would be, are we destined to be of poorer health? Is that just kind of in our genetics? And the main message that Elaine presents in her article is that while we may indeed experience health issues related to our sensitivity, there exists no conclusive evidence in all of the recent research creating a direct causation between being HSP and any kind of physical illness. So that's really great news. You don't have to assume that you're going to be, experiencing more challenges, but it might be surprising to you. It was surprising to me based on discussions that I've had with a variety of HSPs, my close friends, my clients, and then even my own experiences. So good news, but we do want to dive a little bit deeper and discuss some things that she picked up that on our and explained that are much more nuanced, I guess. And so the sensitivity trait, just as a reminder, is a survival strategy. It's used by a significant minority. Maybe it's up as much as 30%, somewhere between 20 and 30% of individuals. We have a heightened attention to detail, a propensity for deep processing, and a remarkable adaptability to surroundings. And that one might be surprising to you too, but that is what the research shows too. If we have everything just so, we can actually be extra adaptable to our environment. So we often navigate social environments with subtlety. When conditions are good for us, our trait remains largely invisible, meaning people can't tell that we're, having any issues, and we can just kind of blend in. But Dr. Aaron notes that visibility of HSPs, or like the differences in the struggles that we have and making it apparent that we're having a different experience, tend to escalate later when our childhood experiences shape unhelpful thoughts and behaviors and leading to manifesting of stress, anxiety, and depression. So I have talked about this idea, this concept of differential susceptibility, and it's key to understanding the dynamics of the trait and as they interface specifically with health. So HSPs who had a positive childhood experience, they felt safe, they felt loved and supported, regardless of whether the actual topic of sensitivity is raised. But if people feel really safe and comfortable, then they tend to adapt to social environments more easily. We have more tools to work with. But if we are in a relationship, in a situation in our childhood where we are not supported and loved, then we tend to have more challenges managing later in life. So she did want to point out that it's success as an adult, or adult functioning, enjoying our lives as we get older, is not contingent on necessarily having a favorable childhood. The aspect that's key there is the ability to learn from our childhood experiences as we prepare for going forward in our lives. So that's a really strong point I wanted to bring up. So even if you did struggle with a very challenging childhood, it doesn't mean that you can't gain those skills and all those tools to be able to then go forward and maximize everything that's positive about the trait and enjoy your life to the fullest. So the research that she mentioned, sheds light on an association between sensitivity and physical symptoms, but it's not necessarily causal. And again, for some of us, that might be a little bit surprising, but she did note that there is one common denominator with any kind of uptick in illness that is shown in any kind of these studies or any of her own experience, and this probably makes sense for you, is that the biggest factor there is stress. So, if you've heard me before, I've talked a lot about the importance of calming our nervous systems in order to mitigate overwhelm. And stress is a significant contributor to health problems in general for the whole population. But for HSPs, due to our heightened sensitivity to the environment and this constant barrage of input, we may be more susceptible to stress-related issues, or to getting, our nervous system depleted, our immune system gets depleted, and then we can get sick more easily if that is a reaction effect of that stress response. So Dr. Aaron does refer to some interesting research that shows that HSPs can have a little higher likelihood of experiencing sensitivity to medication. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to, get chronic fatigue or diabetes or something, but if you're going to be taking supplements or medications for those things, you might be more highly sensitive, and it might seem that things aren't working for you and that you can't take things. So like in my own experience, it does include supplements. It's not just pharmaceuticals. And for a while, I used to assume that there were certain things that I just absolutely could not take because I would have these reactions. But more recently, when I've been able to adjust dosage, I have learned that it is dosage that's the issue. So if I can minimize or lower the dose and give it a try, sometimes I can tolerate these things that in the past I didn't, or it seems like I can't if I have that in full strength. So I do tend to seek out a liquid form or tablets that can be cut. So whether that's, again, a prescription or a supplement, finding those two options so that you can decrease that dosage, or if you're getting a pharmaceutical, request whatever the lowest dosage is, regardless of how much they want you to be taking, and start low and then build up, because that's the way it works for me. If I can start with a quarter dose even, or at least a half, and then see how that goes for me. And then if that's good, then I can up it a little bit. And then if that's still good, I can continue to go up to what the normal dose would be. And quite often I can't get there. But sometimes if I'm at half, I'm actually totally fine, and it will actually benefit me. And which is, of course, why we take these substances. So just being able to moderate that has been a huge factor in my being able to even take some of the basic supplements that seemingly everyone takes every day. If I have a certain dosage of those things, I just can't tolerate them. But with a smaller dose, it actually works. So the bottom line regarding sensitives and health is this call to action for reducing our stress responses. And there are always a variety of stressors out there. It's about how we cope with them, what we do about them, what we tell ourselves about them, the meaning that they have for us. So by prioritizing things like activities like meditation and proper nutrition, exercise, lots of downtime, setting boundaries, we can potentially be healthier than our non-sensitive counterparts. So we can leverage our unique skills to navigate and improve our well-being, even when the world is not necessarily, aligned with our sensitivities or set up the way that would be best for us. So if you're struggling with stress and overwhelm or anxiety, it could be affecting your overall health quite a lot. And there are many tools for calming the nervous system and maintaining a strong self-care practice, and lots of ways to shift thinking in order to change the meaning. As I just mentioned, if we can just change what certain things mean to us, they don't have that impact anymore, and then they're not going to make us as feeling as stressed. So as a little side note, if this seems like totally out of the realm of possibility for you and you're so overwhelmed you just don't even know what direction to turn, please do reach out and connect with me. I'd love to talk with you about how you might be able to find a pathway to calm and to good health. So since we're identifying that stress is such an important part of being healthy, let's revisit some of the stuff. Some of this, if you've heard me before, will be a reminder, and we can always use those reminders, but some of it might be new for you. So first of all, we can't eliminate our stressors, but we can control some situations and some of our environments and reduce the effect of others that we can't control. So we can opt out of activities that tend to put us over the edge. We can make sure that we have enough bandwidth before we're committing to another project or an activity. We can make sure that we have an out, a way to remove ourselves from the situation if it just becomes too much, rather than just, pushing through saying, I should be able to do this, or everybody's counting on me, but recognizing when that's just not going to work. We can also make sure that we're prepared for a variety of situations by making sure we always have plenty of water, some kind of a snack, some extra clothes, especially if you tend to get either too warm and you want to dress down, or if you tend to be like me, cold all the time, you have a sweater or something like that will allow you to be in a comfortable setting, a comfortable situation, so we're not contributing even more to the stress response. So it is really important for us to be comfortable. So we also can make sure that we get optimal sleep. I can't overplay this, because it's ultimately so important. If you're not getting good sleep, then nothing else is really going to be working well. So it's important that not only do you make sure that you designate, enough time. No, it's important for me to get 8 hours of sleep. How am I going to make that happen? Really, really important. But also if there are other things that are keeping you from sleeping well, those things really need to be addressed, because again, it's super important so that your nervous system has some energy to work with every day for all of that stuff that's coming in. Because if you're not sleeping, it's just way too much all the time, and you don't have those reserves. So really, really important. If there's anything to start with, if you're not sleeping well, that's the first thing that you're going to want to focus on in order to be more healthy, is to get that sleep nailed down. And in addition to good sleep, we need a lot of downtime. Highly sensitives need a lot more downtime than average, because again, we need to recharge our nervous system with all of this stuff that's coming in, everybody's emotions and energy and just all the environmental factors. It really adds up. So we need that downtime, and that might be, a hot bath or yoga, a walk in nature, getting lost in a good book, engaging in something creative, some kind of project, or just doing some deep breathing in the dark, if you like that, or in a sunspot, something that's just going to allow you to be like in that moment, calm, letting go of all the obligations, not doing the to-do list, just being where you are and being just being in that space of not having to do, and so that your body can let everything go and regroup. Very, very important. So another thing to be considering is this idea of not having to match up with the Joneses. It's, instead of comparing ourselves and our success or what we're doing or how we should look, how we should respond, and comparing that with other people, just paying attention to what works for us and honoring that. So when we honor our needs, we are taking care of ourselves. Our nervous system is going to respond. Our immune system is going to respond in a positive way, and we will be less stressed, more healthy. So another thing to consider would be, again, spending this time in the moment, not only just taking care of ourselves, but trying to be completely present, like with meditation or deep breathing, where we literally are in this moment and not doing anything, not thinking anything. But at the same time, because I hear a lot from people saying, oh, I'm not good at meditation, that doesn't work for me because I can't stop thinking. So the goal is not to stop, period, and have like this long period of time where you have no thoughts, but to just recognize, oh, I'm thinking, and then regroup to whatever your meditation. You're paying attention to your breathing, you're meditating on a plant, or whatever it is that you're doing. Just every time that your mind goes and you're thinking about tomorrow or rehashing yesterday, you just come in that place and say, nope, okay, I'm back. Now I'm back, and just let it go, but without judgment. That's a big piece, is just not having that judgment. And then also, as you actually are doing things, being mindful, as in being in the moment, be in the moment while you're doing it, even if it's a chore. So when you're washing dishes, pay attention to washing dishes instead of planning out the rest of your evening or your next day, or rehashing again, whatever you didn't like for the day. It's kind of a mindless job, right? You know how to do it, but pay attention to it. And then that brings you into the moment. What does the water feel like in your hands? What's the temperature? Can you feel the silkiness or the slipperiness of the soap? And just paying attention to that might sound silly, but it brings you into that moment and lets go of all of the stuff that you need to worry about. So anything that you are doing, whether that's walking to the mailbox or taking a shower, whatever it is that you're doing that doesn't really require you to be thinking, allow that to just go away. When you're showering, just pay attention to that experience, the water and the temperature and the suds and everything, how you're feeling more clean, all of those things. Just be in that moment. And again, we're letting go of everything that is pressing on us, and we can just relax and feel that state of calm. Okay, so here's another good idea, taking a look at your schedule. So we tend to want to do 110, 120% and not allow for enough downtime, even as we're doing our chores and our work. So take shorter breaks spread throughout the day, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and then at least 30 minutes, hopefully more, midday, whether that's lunch or whatever your schedule looks like, sometime that is, and this is not, I've had to work with clients on this quite a lot too. Do you take a lunch break? Oh yeah, what do you do when you're taking that? Well, I sit over here at this table, different than this table, with my laptop and review the meeting notes or, whatever while I'm eating. That is not a break. So give yourself time away from everything that you are supposed to be doing, all of your projects and work, and just take that time, and you will be more productive when you go back if you're allowing yourself to do that, because everything's going to just start building up, and then it's really, really challenging. So making sure that you have those times throughout the day, and then looking at your schedule at the beginning, and what does the day look like? Even though you say, oh, I have this extra time here, I can fit one more thing in. Technically, yes. But if you try to remember to only schedule yourself for about 80% of what you think you can do, it's much safer than saying, oh, well, I've got this room, I'm going to stuff this in there because I know I can do it. And of course you can, but it's going to have an effect cumulatively, throughout the day, throughout the week. So being able to say, I need a little wiggle room in there to make sure in case something comes up, because things often do, or you get toward that point, or maybe you even, didn't fill the spot in the morning, you'll have more energy throughout the rest of the day. But sometimes also we get toward 2/3 of the day, 3/4 of the day, and it seemed like we were going to be able to do seems like way too much, because we've taken all that input in and it just gets to be too much. So give yourself those options to really connect with what you need, have that downtime, and not be doing constantly all the time. And a couple more things to just be thinking of. What is your spiritual practice? So where are you at with that? Because generally feeling more connected to something greater, to our inner wisdom, to something that's not just the everyday, and reminding us that we're part of something bigger makes a huge impact on our ability to feel more calm and at ease and okay with the world. So whether that means, meditation or prayer, or checking out some different viewpoints that you're not familiar with and finding out what resonates for you, it's just creating some kind of ongoing spiritual practice can be really, really helpful. We do tend to navigate that direction more often than non-sensitives. That tends to be a big part of our lives, whether that's something specifically religious or something non-religious, but spiritual. I know that's kind of a cliche these days, but something that allows you to, again, feel a part of something bigger, and like you're not just struggling through the world all by yourself. That can make a huge difference in the nervous system and the immune system and being able to be healthy. And then a last one to follow up with is being of service can be really, really impactful. And some people will say, oh, the whole thing focusing on me first, when we need to focus on community first, because that's how we build and make everything work well. And I totally agree with that we need to have that as a piece of how we stay healthy and taking care of each other, and then having that focus of community. And we need to have our own self-care. Both of those need to happen together. So I just want to say that. But in terms of that service, every time that we help someone, we tend to feel better. And every time we feel like we're contributing and have a purpose, we usually feel better. So when we're doing those things on a regular basis, that helps to fill our positivity bucket, the positive energy that we have to work with. Every time we do something that we know is going to help somebody, we get to fill that bucket more. And that helps our immune system and helps our nervous system and everything flow more. And then, of course, it tends to make us happier. If we are doing something that creates a smile in somebody else, that tends to help us to smile and to feel better. And we have that purpose and that sense of value and that connection that we also thrive on. So looking at some ways that you can, choose to be of service in a way that doesn't deplete you is really important. So it's not just that, oh, I have to find something, so that I'm helping, because that's really important and it feeds me to help someone, no matter what it looks like. That's not going to really be very helpful. There are certain things that work and certain that don't. I have a client who has been searching for that recently, like what's going to work for me to be of service. And she had identified an organization that works with rehab of animals. And she thought, oh, this is going to be perfect because I absolutely adore animals. I really connect with them. This is really great. But once she got in there and she realized what the state of the animals tend to be when they're brought into this place, she realized she would not be able to handle that. And so even though she really, really wanted to give and her heart was so full, and she knew she would be very helpful, she realized, oh, you know what? I'm going to be in a state that I don't like some of the time while I'm there. And that's not going to help me or anybody else or the animals. So really being able to recognize what you can do in service that also allows you to take care of you. Very important, but that can be a really big piece to being healthy, is incorporating that piece, if you're not already doing that, of some kind of service, whether that's, time in person with someone or a situation, or something that you're doing on Zoom or on the phone, or whatever it is that suits you, making sure that you're doing that to just help you feel part of the community and have those connections with other people. All right, so basically, to make sure that you stay as healthy as possible, it's not only about choosing all of the right things to eat and being in a healthy environment and all those things that we typically think of for being healthy, but really buoying yourself up through sustainable self-care and using all of your tools to mitigate the stressors in your life. Because if you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, it's likely that you will just not have the reserves to fight things, and you can find yourself, more likely to be ill in some way. And we don't want that. We want healthy. So just make sure that you are doing everything that you can to take care of that stress level, mitigate that, take care of yourself, love yourself, and please do reach out if you have any kind of questions about that, or would like to have an opportunity to talk about how you could create your own self-care practice to increase your health. So as always, thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to connecting with you in the future. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.